The night before her mating ceremony, Lysara saw the man she loved tangled in her sister's arms. And so she ran. She fled the castle, the kingdom, and the life she thought she knew, disappearing into the wilderness with nothing but the shattered remains of her heart. She didn't know she carried his children. She didn't know he would spend 5 years tearing the realm apart looking for her. She didn't know that everything she had seen that night was a lie. Now, in a forgotten village at the edge of the world, Lysara has built a quiet life. She's a healer, a mother, a ghost. Her twins, Stellan and Cassia, have never known their father. They've never known they carry royal blood in their veins or that their eyes, one pair silver, one pair gold, mark them as something extraordinary. But secrets don't stay buried forever. When Alpha King Kaelin finally tracks her down, he doesn't find the broken girl who fled his castle. He finds a woman of steel and silence, a mother who would burn the world to protect her children, and 2 pups who look at him with his own eyes. He wants answers. She wants him gone. He refuses to leave. She refuses to trust. But the kingdom is crumbling. Dark forces are circling, and the truth about that devastating night 5 years ago is more twisted than either of them imagined. She caught him with her sister and vanished. He searched for her until it nearly killed him. Now they must face the enemies who tore them apart, and the love that never truly died. Some betrayals are unforgivable. Some were never real at all. 5 years earlier, the castle of Valdrin had never looked more beautiful than it did the night Lysara's world ended. Moonlight poured through the arched windows, painting silver rivers across the marble floors. Garlands of winter jasmine hung from every pillar, filling the corridors with sweetness. Tomorrow, she would become queen. Tomorrow, she would mate the Alpha King and bind her life to his forever. Tonight, she couldn't sleep. Lysara wandered the castle in her nightgown, bare feet silent against cold stone. She told herself it was excitement, told herself it was normal for a bride to feel restless on the eve of her ceremony. But something deeper pulled at her chest, a whisper of wrongness she couldn't name. She found herself walking toward Kaelin's chambers without consciously deciding to go there. Perhaps she just wanted to see him. Perhaps she needed reassurance that this was real, that a man like him truly wanted someone like her. I'm the daughter of a minor lord, plain, overlooked, somehow chosen by a king. Her sister Odessa had been furious when the selection was announced. Beautiful, cunning Odessa, who had always gotten everything she wanted. For the first time in their lives, someone had chosen Lysara instead. It had felt like a miracle. Now, standing outside Kaelin's door, Lysara paused. She heard voices, low murmurs, a woman's laugh, throaty and familiar. Dread flooded her veins. She should have knocked, should have announced herself, should have done anything other than push that door open and step inside. The image would be carved into her memory forever. Kaelin, her Kaelin, pressed against the far wall with a woman wrapped around him, his hands in her hair, his mouth on her throat, and the woman's face, tilted toward the door with a smile of pure triumph. I was her sister's. Odessa's eyes met hers. She didn't pull away. She didn't look ashamed. She looked satisfied. Oh, Odessa said. Hello, sister. Lysara couldn't breathe. The world had gone strange and distant, sounds muffled as if she were underwater. She watched Kaelin turn, watched his face, that beloved face she'd spent months memorizing, show nothing. No shock, no guilt, no recognition of what he was destroying. Lysara. His voice was flat, cold. Not at all like the warm tone he used when they were alone. You shouldn't be here. Her voice cracked. Tomorrow. He stepped away from Odessa, but he didn't come toward Lysara. He stayed exactly where he was, a stranger wearing her beloved's face. Tomorrow is a political arrangement. This is something else entirely. Odessa laughed, covering her mouth delicately with one hand. Did you really think he loved you? The question hit like a physical blow. Lysara staggered backward, her hip striking the door frame. "I know this must be confusing for you." Kaelin's tone was patient, condescending, the voice of a king explaining something simple to a simpleton. "Our mating will proceed as planned, but you need to understand your place. You'll give me heirs, attend functions. Beyond that, I have no use for you." "No use for you." Lysara's wolf howled inside her chest, a sound of pure anguish that she barely managed to keep from escaping her throat. She stumbled back another step, then another. "Where are you going?" Odessa called, her voice light with amusement. "The ceremony is tomorrow. You can't run away." But she could. She was running before she made the conscious choice. Flying through the castle corridors, past startled servants, through the great hall with its carefully arranged flowers and ceremonial banners. Her bare feet slapped against stone, then grass, then the soft earth of the forest floor. She ran until her lungs burned, until her legs gave out, until she collapsed at the base of an ancient oak and sobbed so hard she thought her body might shatter. Hours passed. Dawn began to lighten the sky. Somewhere behind her, the castle would be stirring. People would be looking for their missing bride. Her father would be enraged. Aldrich had been so proud that one of his daughters would be queen, had boasted to everyone who would listen. Lysara pressed her hand to her stomach, trying to steady her breathing. She couldn't go back. The thought of standing before the kingdom, binding herself to a man who saw her as nothing but a vessel for heirs, it was unbearable. But where could she go? She had no money, no friends outside the pack, no family who would help her. Her mother had died years ago. Her father would never forgive the humiliation. A village, she thought desperately. A remote village where no one knew her name. She could work as a healer. She'd always had a gift for it. She could disappear. She could become no one. Lysara stood on shaking legs and made herself walk away from everything she knew. She didn't look back. She simply walked until the kingdom of Valdrin was nothing but a memory. She didn't know she was carrying the king's children. She didn't know he would search for her until it nearly destroyed him. And she didn't know that the man she'd seen that night, the cold stranger with her beloved's face, had never been Kaelin at all. Present day. The village of Bracken Hollow was the kind of place people came to disappear, and Lysara had disappeared thoroughly. 5 years had transformed her. The soft, naive girl who fled a castle had become something harder, leaner, a woman who delivered babies in the dark of night, set bones with steady hands, and raised 2 children entirely alone. Stellan and Cassia were playing in the garden when Lysara heard the horses. She went still, her hands frozen over the herbs she'd been sorting. Horses meant travelers. Travelers meant strangers. And strangers, in her experience, were never good news. "Inside," she called, keeping her voice light. "Both of you, now." Stellan looked up. His silver eyes, Kaelin's eyes, a knife twist every time she saw them, narrowing with suspicion. At 5 years old, he was already too perceptive, already too protective. "Why?" he demanded. "Because I said so. Take your sister." Cassia, golden-eyed and gentle, was already gathering her doll made of corn husks. She slipped her small hand into her brother's and tugged him toward the cottage. "Something's wrong," Stellan said. "Nothing is wrong, go." She waited until they were inside before she turned toward the road. The hoofbeats were louder now. Multiple horses. Moving fast. Lysara's hand found the knife hidden in her apron pocket. 5 years of peace, she thought grimly. 5 years of hiding. And somehow she'd known, deep down, that it couldn't last forever. The riders crested the hill, and her heart stopped. 12 men in the black and silver of the Royal Guard. At their head, mounted on a midnight stallion, was a ghost from her past. Kaelin. He was exactly as she remembered, and nothing like she remembered. The same sharp jaw, the same silver eyes, the same presence that seemed to bend the air around him. But he was thinner now, paler. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before, and something in his posture spoke of exhaustion so deep it had become part of him. He pulled his horse to a stop at the edge of her property. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then his eyes found hers, and Lysara watched something break open in his expression. Relief, anguish, something that looked almost like desperation. Lysara. Her name was a ragged breath. She gripped her knife tighter. You need to leave. I've been searching for you for 5 years. Then you've wasted 5 years. I have nothing to say to you. Kaelin dismounted in one fluid motion. His men stayed where they were, but she could feel them watching, evaluating. She was one woman with a kitchen knife facing the Alpha King and his guard. Please, Kaelin said, and the word seemed to cost him something. Just let me. Let you what? Her voice cracked with fury she hadn't known she still carried. Explain? Apologize? Tell me it meant nothing while you had your hands all over my sister? He flinched as if she'd struck him. What? I saw you, Kaelin. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. The night before our ceremony, I saw you with Odessa. I heard what you said, that I was nothing but a political arrangement, a body to give you heirs. So don't stand there pretending you don't know what you did. The color drained from his face. That's impossible. I know what I saw. You saw a lie. He took a step toward her, then stopped when she raised the knife. His voice was shaking now. Lysara, I swear on my mother's grave, I was never with your sister. I have never touched her. I never would. Lysara laughed bitterly. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to listen. Desperation edged into his tone. The night before our ceremony, I was drugged. I woke up alone in a different part of the castle with no memory of how I'd gotten there. When I went looking for you, you were gone. Everyone was gone. Your father said you'd fled in shame, that you'd confessed to some crime, that you... He stopped, jaw clenching. I didn't believe him. I've never believed him. I've had men searching every corner of this realm for 5 years, and I finally found you. Something cold moved through Lysara's chest. Drugged. He'd been drugged? No, this was another trick, another manipulation. She wouldn't fall for it twice. Leave, she said flatly, and don't come back. I can't do that. This is my home, my land. You have no authority here. I'm the Alpha King. I have authority everywhere. Not over me. She lifted her chin, letting her wolf rise close to the surface. I rejected the mate bond the night I left. You have no claim on me. Pain flashed across his features, but he didn't retreat. And our children? Do I have a claim on them? The world tilted. Lysara's grip on the knife faltered. I saw them, Kaelin said. Through the window. A boy with silver eyes. A girl with gold. They're mine, aren't they? Before Lysara could respond, the cottage door burst open. Stellan stood in the doorway, small fists clenched, positioning himself between his mother and the strangers like a wolf pup defending his pack. Leave my mother alone, he growled. Kaelin went absolutely still. He stared at the boy, his son, with an expression Lysara had never seen on his face. Wonder, heartbreak, longing so raw it made her chest ache despite everything. I'm not here to hurt anyone, Kaelin said, crouching to Stellan's level. I promise. Stellan's eyes narrowed, Kaelin's exact expression on a child's face. Mama said promises are just words. Actions are what matter. A flicker of respect crossed Kaelin's gaze, or grief for the years he'd missed. Your mother is very wise, he said, and she's right. He straightened, turning back to Lysara. I won't force you to come back. I won't drag you anywhere against your will. But I'm not leaving this village until you hear the truth. All of it. I've heard enough lies to last a lifetime. Then hear this one. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the rapid pulse in his throat, the barely leashed emotion in every line of his body. I loved you, Lysara. I never stopped. Not for a single day of these 5 miserable years. And if someone made you see something that wasn't real, I need to know who. Because I will tear them apart with my bare hands for what they've taken from us." The certainty in his voice was terrifying, because part of her, a foolish, wounded part she'd tried to kill, wanted to believe him. "Mama?" Cassia's small voice came from behind Stellan. "Who is that man? Why does he look so sad?" Lysara closed her eyes. This was a nightmare. A living nightmare. "Give me 1 week," Kaelin murmured. 1 week to prove I'm telling the truth. If I can't, I'll leave and never return. You have my word." She should say no. She should drive him away, pack up her children, and run again. But she was so tired of running. 1 week, she heard herself say. Then you're gone. She just didn't know that 1 week would change everything, and that the enemy who destroyed them 5 years ago was already circling, closer than she'd ever dreamed. Kaelin made camp at the edge of the village, his men setting up tents with quiet efficiency. He refused to leave, but he also refused to impose. It was a careful balance, presence without pressure, and Lysara hated that she noticed the consideration in it. And she hated even more that she couldn't stop watching him through her window. "Mama, why is your face doing that?" Cassia asked, tugging at her skirt. Lysara looked down at her daughter. Golden eyes, soft brown curls, a heart so tender it worried her constantly. "Doing what, little love?" "That scrunchy thing, when you're trying not to feel something." Children saw too much. Lysara crouched down and smoothed her daughter's hair. "There are just some complicated things happening right now. Grown-up things." "Is it about that man? The sad one with Stellan's eyes?" The knife twisted deeper. "Yes." "Is he bad?" The question hung in the air. 5 years ago, Lysara would have said yes without hesitation. Now, with his words echoing in her skull, "I was drugged. I never touched her. I've been searching for 5 years." She didn't know anymore. "I don't know," she admitted. "I'm trying to figure that out." Stellan appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, expression thunderous. "He's coming to the door." Lysara's heart lurched. What? 3 knocks confirmed it. She straightened, smoothing her apron, and opened the door just wide enough to see Kaelin standing on her step. He'd changed into simpler clothes, linen shirt, leather breeches, as if trying to seem less like a king. It didn't work. Power clung to him like a second skin. "May I come in?" he asked. "No." He accepted this without argument. "Then may I speak with you out here?" Lysara glanced back at the twins. "Stellan, watch your sister. Don't open the door for anyone but me." She stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind her. The evening air was cool, carrying the scent of pine and distant rain. Kaelin stood several feet back, giving her space. More consideration, more care. "What do you want?" she demanded. "To tell you what happened. The night you left." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she remembered from years ago. It meant he was nervous. Vulnerable. "I need you to understand. Then talk." He nodded slowly. "That evening, your father invited me to share a drink in his chambers. To welcome me to the family," he said. "I thought it was strange. Aldrich had never been warm toward me, but I wanted to make peace. For you." Lysara's stomach clenched at her father's name. "The wine tasted odd," Kaelin continued. "Bitter. I remember thinking I should stop drinking, but my body wouldn't obey. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in the West Tower, hours later, with no memory of how I'd gotten there. When I went to find you," his voice roughened, "you were gone. Your chambers were empty. Your father told everyone you'd confessed to plotting against the crown and fled before you could be arrested." "Plotting against the crown?" Lysara stared at him. "That's absurd." "I know, I never believed it. But I couldn't prove otherwise, and you were gone, and I—" He stopped, composing himself. "I've had men searching ever since. Every lead, every rumor, every whisper of a woman with your description. For 5 years, Lysara, I never stopped. She wanted to believe him. The wanting was a physical ache in her chest. But she'd seen what she'd seen. If you weren't with Odessa that night, she said carefully, then who was? Because I watched you, watched him with my own eyes. I heard your voice. I don't know. The admission seemed to pain him. Dark magic, perhaps. An illusion. A shapeshifter in my employ who betrayed me. I've spent years trying to find answers and found nothing, but I swear to you. He stepped closer, and she didn't retreat. I swear on everything I am, it wasn't me. I would never betray you. The intensity in his gaze was almost unbearable. Lysara looked away first. Even if I believed you, she murmured, it doesn't change anything. I've built a life here. The children have never known anything else. I'm not asking you to leave. Not yet. I just need you to consider the possibility that someone wanted to destroy us. Someone who benefited from your disappearance. Odessa's triumphant smile flashed through her memory, her father's cold eyes. My family, Lysara whispered. Your father has been at court this entire time, Kaelin said grimly, advising me, positioning himself as my most loyal supporter while his daughter Odessa has attempted, repeatedly, to insert herself into my bed and onto my throne. Nausea rolled through her. Odessa has been pursuing me relentlessly. I've rejected her every time. She told me once that you were always jealous of her, that you ran away because you couldn't handle being compared to her. His jaw tightened. I knew it was a lie. I knew you. You didn't know me well enough to search for the truth that night. The accusation landed. She saw him absorb it, saw the guilt flash across his face. No, he agreed. I didn't. I woke up confused, drugged, and by the time I'd gathered my senses, you were gone. I should have known immediately that something was wrong. Instead, I trusted the wrong people, and I lost you. He met her eyes. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to help me find the truth so I can destroy whoever did this. Before Lysara could respond, a commotion erupted at the edge of the village. Raised voices, the thundering of approaching hooves. Both of them turned as a new group of riders crested the hill. These weren't wearing the black and silver of Kaelin's guard. They wore deep crimson, the colors of her father's household. At the head of the party, resplendent in red silk, rode Odessa. Fear spiked through Lysara's veins. Well, well, Odessa called, her voice carrying across the distance. What a touching reunion, the lost bride and her devoted king. Kaelin's hand moved to his sword. His men were already on their feet, forming a defensive line, but Odessa held up one hand, smiling serenely. Peace, your majesty. I come with a message from Lord Aldrich. Her eyes found Lysara, and the triumph in them was exactly as Lysara remembered. Father demands the return of his daughter and his grandchildren. Lysara is not his property, Kaelin said coldly, nor are the children. The children are heirs to his bloodline. As for Lysara, Odessa's smile widened. She's a fugitive who fled royal justice 5 years ago. Father has every right to demand her arrest. She's under my protection. Is she? Odessa tilted her head, the picture of innocence. How interesting. You're protecting a woman who abandoned you on your mating night? A woman who rejected you publicly and humiliated the crown? She tisked. What would the council think? Lysara felt Kaelin's tension like a physical force. He was trapped. Defending her made him look weak. Abandoning her meant losing her forever. The council, she said, stepping forward, can think whatever they like. Odessa's gaze snapped to her. Little sister, you've grown bold in your exile. I've grown tired of being manipulated. Lysara's voice was steady, though her heart raced. Tell father I'm not coming back. Tell him his grandchildren will never know his name. And tell him I know what he did, what you both did, and I will prove it. Something flickered in Odessa's expression. Fear? Anger? It vanished too quickly to identify. Be careful, Lysara, Odessa breathed. Accusations require evidence, and evidence can be misplaced. She wheeled her horse and rode away, her escort thundering after her. Silence fell over the village. Lysara's hands were shaking. She clasped them together to hide it. You challenged them, Kaelin said. You know what that means. It means they'll come for me. Lysara turned to face him. It means they'll come for my children, and I would rather fight than run again. His expression changed. Admiration, maybe, or recognition. Then we fight together, he said. I haven't agreed to trust you. I know. He extended his hand, palm up, an offering rather than a demand. But perhaps we can start here. Partners against a common enemy. No expectations beyond that. Lysara stared at his hand. 5 years ago, she'd taken his hand at a royal ball and felt her entire world rearrange itself. She'd believed in him completely. Then she'd watched that belief shatter. Now he was asking her to believe again. Not in love, not in them, just in the possibility that they'd both been victims of the same lie. And inside the cottage, she could hear Cassia crying, Stellan trying to comfort her. Her children, his children, the ones who'd never known their father because someone had stolen that chance from all of them. Slowly, carefully, Lysara placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, and something in his expression cracked open. Raw relief, barely concealed pain, and something deeper that she couldn't let herself name. Partners, she said. Partners. He agreed. But even as she spoke, she saw Odessa's carriage disappearing over the hill, and knew with terrible certainty that her sister wouldn't stop. That her father wouldn't stop. That they'd spent 5 years believing Lysara was gone forever. And now that she'd surfaced, now that she'd threatened to expose them, they would do whatever it took to silence her. This time, they might not settle for breaking her heart. This time, they might try to end her entirely. The next 3 days passed in uneasy tension. Kaelin kept his distance as promised, but his presence transformed Brackenhollow entirely. His men patrolled the village borders. Supplies arrived from the capital: food, medicine, building materials. The villagers, initially suspicious, began warming to the sudden prosperity. Lysara watched it all with wary eyes. She knew what Kaelin was doing, demonstrating his value, showing her what life could be like under his protection. It was strategic and thoughtful and infuriatingly effective. The king fixed Old Brennan's roof, Cassia reported over breakfast, her golden eyes wide with wonder. And he gave Mira's baby a blessing. Everyone's talking about it. He's buying loyalty, Lysara said flatly. He's being nice, Cassia countered. Why is that bad? From across the table, Stellan watched silently. He'd barely spoken since Kaelin's arrival, his silver eyes tracking the king's every movement with an intensity that worried her. It's not bad, Lysara admitted, softening her tone. It's just complicated. A knock at the door made them all freeze. 3 sharp raps, not Kaelin's rhythm. He always knocked twice, as if afraid of startling her. Lysara rose, gripping the knife she now kept constantly at her side. Stay here. She opened the door to find a man she didn't recognize, middle-aged, well-dressed, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. Behind him stood 2 guards in unfamiliar livery, deep blue trimmed with silver. Lysara of House Varen? The man asked formally. Her stomach plummeted. No one had called her by her family name in 5 years. Who's asking? Lord Councillor Theron Vask, representing the Northern Alliance. He produced a sealed document. I'm here regarding a petition submitted by Lord Aldrich Varen, claiming custody of 2 children allegedly born of royal blood. The world narrowed to a single point of focus. Lysara's wolf surged forward, her vision sharpening, her teeth aching to extend. My children, she said carefully, are none of the council's concern. On the contrary. Theron's tone was polite but firm. If these children carry the Alpha King's bloodline, they are very much the Council's concern. Royal succession is a matter of kingdom security. The succession is secure. Kaelin's voice cut through the morning air like a blade. He strode toward them, flanked by his own guards. I have no need of the Council's intervention in my personal affairs. Theron turned, offering a shallow bow. Your Majesty, I didn't realize you were here personally. Now you do. Kaelin positioned himself beside Lysara, not touching her, but close enough that his intent was clear. This woman and her children are under my protection. Any claims against them will be addressed through me. With respect, Your Majesty, Lord Aldrich's petition carries significant support among the noble houses. He argues that the children were concealed deliberately, depriving the kingdom of legitimate heirs. Some council members believe this constitutes treason. A chill swept through Lysara. Treason. Her father was accusing her of treason. Treason. Kaelin repeated slowly, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Against whom? Exactly? Against the crown. Against you. Theron spread his hands. You must understand the optics. A woman flees on her mating night, hides the king's children for 5 years and refuses to return. It raises questions about her loyalty. Her intentions were survival. Kaelin's control was slipping. Lysara could hear the growl building beneath his words. She fled because she was manipulated into believing lies. The only treason here is the conspiracy that drove her away. Theron's eyebrows rose. That's quite an accusation. One I intend to prove. A crowd had gathered, villagers emerging from their homes, drawn by the confrontation. Lysara felt their eyes on her, felt the weight of their curiosity and concern. The council will require evidence, Theron said. Until then, Lord Aldrich's petition stands. He's demanding a formal hearing in the capital within the fortnight. Denied. Your Majesty, I said denied. Kaelin stepped forward, and the raw power of his alpha presence rolled outward like a physical wave. Theron stumbled back. There will be no hearing. There will be no petition. And if Aldrich Varen wants access to my children, he can come to me directly and explain why he orchestrated the disappearance of their mother. Silence crashed over the gathering. Theron recovered slowly, straightening his coat with trembling fingers. You're making serious allegations against a respected lord. I'm making promises. Kaelin's voice was ice. Go back to your council. Tell them the Alpha King remembers his allies and his enemies. It was a threat, bold, public, unmistakable. The kind of political maneuver that could make or break alliances. Theron's jaw tightened, but he bowed. As you wish, Your Majesty. But this isn't over. The council will have their answers. He mounted his horse and rode away, his guards following in hasty formation. The moment they disappeared over the hill, whispers erupted through the crowd. Lysara heard fragments. Royal children, conspiracy, the king defending the healer woman, and felt exposed in a way she hadn't experienced since fleeing the castle. Mama? Cassia's voice came from behind her. She'd disobeyed, come to the door, and now stood clutching Stellan's hand with tears streaming down her cheeks. Are the bad men going to take us away? Lysara's heart shattered. She knelt, gathering both children into her arms. No one is taking you anywhere. I promise. You can't promise that, Stellan said. His silver eyes met hers. Too old, too knowing for a 5-year-old. They're powerful. Grandfather is powerful. I heard what that man said. Kaelin crouched beside them, moving slowly, as if approaching wounded animals. May I make a promise too? Stellan regarded him warily but didn't retreat. I will never let anyone take you from your mother, Kaelin said, his voice rough with emotion. I will burn the entire kingdom to the ground before I allow that to happen. Why? The boy asked. Kaelin's throat worked. Because you're my son, and protecting you is the most important thing I will ever do. Cassia wriggled out of Lysara's arms and did something that stopped everyone's breath. She walked to Kaelan, studied his face for a long moment, and then wrapped her small arms around his neck. "You have sad eyes like Stellan," she whispered. "But I think you want to be good." Kaelin went utterly still. Then, slowly, his arms came up to hold her, and Lysara watched something crack open in his expression. Grief and wonder and desperate, aching hope. When he looked at her over Cassia's head, his eyes were wet. "Thank you," he mouthed silently. Before she could respond, a scream split the air from the edge of the village. Then another. Then the smell hit her. Smoke. Fire. Something burning. "The eastern fields?" someone shouted. "They're on fire." Kaelin was on his feet instantly. "Get the children inside, stay there." "What's happening?" He looked toward the rising column of black smoke, and his expression hardened into something lethal. "A message," he said grimly, "from your father." The fires took hours to contain. By the time the last embers died, a quarter of Bracken Hollow's winter stores had been destroyed. No one had been killed. The flames had started in empty fields, but the message was clear. Aldrich Varen could reach them anywhere. And this was just the beginning. Lysara stood at the edge of the ruined crops, ash drifting around her like gray snow. Her hands were black with soot. She'd worked alongside the villagers to beat back the flames, refusing to hide while others fought. "You should rest." Kaelin appeared beside her, equally filthy, his fine clothes ruined beyond repair. He'd fought the fire too, not commanding from a distance, but carrying water, digging trenches, doing the brutal work of salvation alongside common farmers. The villagers had noticed. She'd seen their expressions shift from wariness to something approaching respect. "How can I rest?" Lysara gestured at the devastation. "This is my fault. They attacked this village because of me." "They attacked this village because your father is a monster." Kaelin's voice was flat with controlled rage. "Don't give him the satisfaction of accepting blame you don't deserve. Those people lost their winter supplies. Which I will replace. Tenfold." He turned to face her fully. "I've already sent word to the capital. Grain, preserved meat, everything they need will arrive within days." Lysara shook her head slowly. "You can't buy forgiveness for what's coming. My father won't stop. He'll keep pushing, keep attacking until..." "Until what?" Kaelin stepped closer. "Until you break? Until you run again?" His voice softened, the anger giving way to something more vulnerable. "I watched you fight those flames tonight. I saw you refuse to back down. That's not someone who runs. That's someone protecting her home." The words came out thick with emotion. "These people took me in when I had nothing. They helped me raise my children. I won't let my family's poison destroy what they've built." "Then let me help you stop them." She met his gaze. Really met it. For the first time since he'd arrived. The silver depths held no calculation, no hidden agenda. Just raw, desperate sincerity. "Why do you care so much?" she whispered. "You know why. Say it." A muscle jumped in his jaw. "Because I loved you. Because I still love you. Because losing you was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I've spent 5 years as half a person. I'm going through the motions of being king, while the only thing I wanted was to find you and bring you home." The confession hung between them, dangerous and exposed. "You don't know me anymore," Lysara said. "The girl you loved. She died the night she ran. Then let me know who you became." He reached out slowly, giving her every opportunity to retreat, and touched her cheek. His palm was warm, rough with calluses she didn't remember. "Let me know the woman who raised 2 children alone, who became a healer, who stood up to her family's threats without flinching. Because I think..." His voice cracked. "I think I could love her even more." Lysara's resolve wavered. She should pull away. Should maintain the walls she'd built so carefully over 5 years of solitude. Instead, she leaned into his touch. Just slightly. Just enough. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of me? Of believing you. Of trusting again." She closed her eyes. Last time I trusted, I lost everything. I know. His thumb traced her cheekbone, achingly gentle. And I know I can't promise that trusting me won't hurt. But I can promise to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it. A sound escaped her, half sob, half laugh. That's a big promise. I'm a king. We specialize in grandiose declarations. Despite everything, she smiled. And when she opened her eyes, she found him smiling too, tentative, hopeful, heartbreakingly uncertain. The children are waiting, she said. We should get back. Can I walk with you? Yes. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't trust. But it was a step, small, fragile, terrifying, towards something that might become both. They walked back through the village in silence, side by side, not quite touching but closer than they'd been since his arrival. By the time they reached her cottage, the moon had risen fully. The twins were asleep. She'd left them with a neighbor during the fire, and the house was dark and quiet. Stay, she said before she could stop herself. Kaelin froze. What? Not. She flushed. Not like that. But it's late, and you're exhausted, and there's a cot in the healing room. It's better than a tent. He stared at her as if she'd offered him the kingdom itself. Are you sure? No. She wasn't sure of anything. But her wolf was rumbling with something that felt dangerously like contentment, and she was so tired of being alone. Her wolf, a silver creature she'd rarely let emerge since fleeing Valdrin, with fur the color of winter moonlight, stirred restlessly at his nearness. I'm sure. She led him inside, found blankets, made up the narrow cot in the room where she prepared her medicines. It was simple and spare, nothing like the luxury he was accustomed to. But when she turned to apologize, she found him running his fingers over the dried herbs hanging from the ceiling, something like wonder on his face. You built this, he said. All of this. A practice, a reputation, a life. By yourself. I had to. You didn't have to do anything. He turned to face her. You could have found another pack, another mate. Instead, you chose to stand alone. I was never alone. Lysara touched her stomach unconsciously. I had them. From the moment I knew they existed, I was never truly alone. A flicker of that heartbreak crossed his expression again, that grief for years he couldn't get back. Tell me about it, he said hoarsely. Please, tell me what it was like. She should refuse, should maintain some boundaries. But he looked so lost, so hungry for connection to the life he'd missed, that she found herself sinking onto a stool and beginning to speak. She told him about discovering her pregnancy in a roadside inn, terrified and elated and utterly unprepared. About the kindness of strangers who helped her reach Bracken Hollow, a village so remote it didn't appear on most maps. About the birth. Agonizing, endless hours of labor with only a midwife she'd known for 3 months. Stellan came first, she said, silent and serious even then. He didn't cry, just looked at me with those silver eyes, like he was evaluating whether I was worthy. And then Cassia, 10 minutes later, screaming loud enough to wake the forest. Had they been exactly the same ever since? Kaelin listened without interrupting. Tears tracked silently down his face, but he didn't wipe them away, didn't try to hide them. I should have been there, he whispered when she finished. You didn't know. I should have known. His hands clenched. I should have searched harder, should have questioned everything. You couldn't have known what my family was capable of. No. He met her eyes, and the guilt there was staggering. But I should have trusted you more than I trusted them. That's my failure, and I'll carry it for the rest of my life. Lysara stared at him. This king who'd hunted for her across 5 years, who'd cried at the story of his children's birth, who sat on a narrow cot in a healer's cottage and spoke of failure as if he were the one who'd been wronged. And she crossed the room before she could think better of it, stood before him, reached down and touched his face. We both failed, she breathed. We both trusted the wrong people and doubted the right ones. But we're here now. Our children are sleeping in the next room, and maybe—" She took a shaking breath. "Maybe that's what matters." Kalen's hand came up to cover hers. His skin was warm, his grip gentle. When he turned his head and pressed his lips to her palm, she felt the kiss everywhere. "Stay with me tonight," he murmured against her skin. "Not as king and subject, not as estranged mates. Just stay, please." She knew she shouldn't. Knew it was too fast, too dangerous, too likely to break her heart all over again. But the word that left her mouth was, yes. She slept in a chair beside his cot, wrapped in a blanket, closer to another person than she'd been in 5 years. Nothing happened. Nothing physical. Nothing romantic. They simply existed in the same space, breathing the same air, and somehow that intimacy was more profound than anything else could have been. Lysara woke at dawn to find Kalen already awake, watching her with an expression she couldn't name. "You snore?" he said. "I do not." Delicately, like a small, irritated badger. She threw her blanket at him. He caught it, laughing, actually laughing, a sound so unexpected it made her chest ache. This was the Kalen she remembered, the one who teased her at formal dinners, who snuck her pastries from the kitchen, who made her feel seen and cherished, and impossibly fortunate. She'd thought that man was a lie. Now she wondered if he'd been the truth all along. "The children will be awake soon," she said, standing and stretching muscles stiff from sleeping upright. "Can I make them breakfast?" Lysara blinked. "What? Breakfast?" He rose, running a hand through disheveled hair. "I realize I've never cooked anything in my life, but I'm willing to try. I want—" He hesitated. "I want them to know me. Not as a king. As their father." The request was so earnest, so vulnerable, that she couldn't refuse. "There's oatmeal in the cupboard, honey on the shelf. Try not to burn down my cottage." His answering smile was worth every risk she'd taken letting him stay. 20 minutes later, Lysara emerged from her room freshly dressed to find chaos. Kalen stood at the hearth, covered in flour, attempting to stir a pot that was clearly moments from boiling over. Cassia was helping by adding increasingly dubious ingredients, herbs from the healing room, a handful of dried flowers, something that might have been bark. Stellan watched from the table with an expression of deep resignation. "This is going to be terrible," the boy said flatly. "It's going to be an adventure," Kalen corrected, not looking up from his battle with the pot. "Adventures don't taste like burned oatmeal." "You haven't tasted it yet." "I don't need to. I can smell failure." Lysara covered her mouth to hide her laughter. Kalen caught her eye and grinned, flour in his eyebrows, triumph in his expression. "The prince has strong opinions," he said. "I'm not a prince," Stellan said quickly. "You are, actually." Kalen's tone gentled. "But that doesn't have to mean anything you don't want it to. Titles are just words. Who you are is what matters." Stellan considered this, his silver eyes, so like his father's, weighing the statement for truth. Finally, grudgingly, he nodded. "The oatmeal is burning." Kalen swore and yanked the pot from the fire. Cassia dissolved into giggles, and Lysara felt something loosen in her chest, a knot she'd carried so long she'd forgotten it existed. This was what she'd imagined, once. A family, a partner, someone to share the small moments with. She'd thought that dream was dead. Now it flickered back to life, fragile but persistent. After breakfast, which was terrible, as Stellan had predicted, though everyone ate it anyway, Kalen asked if he could take the children outside. "Just to the garden," he said. "I won't let them out of sight." Lysara hesitated. Her protective instincts screamed to keep them close, to trust no one. But Cassia was already bouncing with excitement, and even Stellan looked cautiously curious. "Fine, but I'll be watching from the window." She did watch, hands wrapped around a cup of tea that went cold as she forgot to drink it. She watched Kaelin crouch in the dirt and teach Cassia the names of flowers. Watched him show Stellan how to throw a knife at a target, her son's eyes lighting up with fierce satisfaction when the blade struck true. Watched him be patient when Cassia asked endless questions, firm when Stellan tested boundaries, gentle with both in ways that made emotion swell in her chest. He's good with them, she realized. Not perfect. He was clearly learning, clearly uncertain, but genuinely good. When they came back inside, flushed and laughing, Stellan voluntarily sat beside Kaelin at the table. "He's not completely terrible," the boy announced. "High praise," Kaelin said solemnly. "I didn't say you were good. I said you weren't completely terrible. There's a difference." "I accept the distinction." Lysara felt her lips twitch. "What changed your mind?" Stellan shrugged, but his eyes flickered to the knife now tucked into his belt, a real blade, sized for a child's hand. "He takes me seriously. Most adults don't." "You're worth taking seriously," Kaelin said simply. Something shifted in Stellan's expression, a crack in the armor he'd worn since birth, the fierce protectiveness that came from being the man of the house at 5 years old. "Maybe," the boy allowed. "We'll see." It was, Lysara knew, the closest thing to acceptance her son had ever offered anyone. That evening, after the children were asleep, Kaelin found her on the cottage porch, staring at the stars. "May I join you?" She nodded, shifting to make room on the worn wooden bench. He sat close but not touching, respecting the boundary she hadn't quite dropped. "They're extraordinary," he murmured. "Both of them." "I know. You raised them alone. You did that." He turned to look at her, and the admiration in his expression was almost unbearable. "However this ends, whether you ever trust me fully, whether we find the evidence we need, I want you to know that you've done something remarkable. You would have, if you'd had to. Maybe." He looked back at the stars. "Or maybe I would have crumbled. I nearly did, you know. After you left. There were times He stopped, jaw tightening. "Times you what?" Silence. Then, very quietly. "Times I didn't want to keep going. Times the only thing that kept me searching was the hope that maybe, somehow, you were still out there." Lysara's chest constricted. She'd imagined many things over the past 5 years. Kaelin forgetting her, replacing her, living happily with someone else. She'd never imagined him broken. "I'm here now," she said. "You are." His voice was thick. "And I'm terrified it's not real. That I'll wake up tomorrow, and this will have been another dream." She reached out and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers immediately, gripping tight. "It's real," she said. "I'm real. And whatever happens next, we face it together." He lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her knuckles, the same gesture from 5 years ago, when he'd first courted her. The same tenderness, the same devotion. "Together," he repeated. And they sat like that until the stars wheeled overhead and the moon began to set. And when Lysara finally went inside to sleep, she found herself smiling for the first time in longer than she could remember. But 3 days later, when Kaelin's men intercepted a coded message from the capital, the smile vanished entirely. Lord Aldrich was coming to Bracken Hollow personally, and he wasn't coming to negotiate. He was coming to take what he believed was his, by force, if necessary. The final confrontation was approaching. And Lysara knew, with sickening certainty, that not everyone would survive it. 3 days of preparation transformed Bracken Hollow into a fortress. Kaelin's men fortified the village borders, established watchposts, and trained willing villagers in basic defense. Supplies were hidden in caves outside the settlement. Escape routes were mapped for the elderly and children, and through it all, Lysara worked beside them, refusing to be protected while others risked themselves. "You should take the twins and go," Kaelin said on the morning of the 3rd day. "I can arrange safe passage to the Eastern Kingdoms. By the time Aldrich arrives, you'd be beyond his reach. And leave these people to face my father's wrath alone?" Lysara shook her head. I won't run again. I spent 5 years hiding. It ends here. Something fierce flared in Kaylin's expression. Pride, she realized. He was proud of her. Then we stand together, he said. Together, she agreed. That afternoon, one of Kaylin's scouts returned with unexpected news. A small party was approaching from the south, not Aldrich's forces, but a single carriage bearing the crest of House Varenne. Odessa. An icy sensation prickled across Lysara's skin. Why would she come alone? A trap, perhaps, or reconnaissance. Kaylin's hand moved to his sword. Either way, we don't let her near the children. But when Odessa's carriage rolled into the village square, the woman who emerged was nothing like the triumphant sister Lysara remembered. Odessa looked haggard. Dark circles ringed her eyes. Her usually immaculate hair hung limp around her face, and her gown was travel-stained, rumpled in ways she never would have permitted under normal circumstances. I need to speak with you, she said without preamble. Both of you. Alone. Absolutely not, Kaylin growled. Please. The words seemed to cost Odessa something. Her hands were shaking. I know you have no reason to trust me. I know what I've done. But Father is coming with 300 men. And he's not planning to negotiate. He's planning to kill everyone in this village and take the children by force. Lysara's stomach dropped. 300? Mercenaries, mostly. He's been building this army for months, preparing for the possibility that you'd resurface. Odessa's eyes met hers, and for the first time in their lives, Lysara saw genuine fear there. He's gone mad, Lysara. Whatever he was before. Ambitious, cruel, calculating. It's evolved into something worse. He doesn't just want to control the succession anymore. He wants to destroy everyone who could threaten his power, including me. Kaylin stepped forward, radiating menace. Why should we believe anything you say? Because I have proof. Odessa reached into her cloak and withdrew a leather-bound journal. Father's personal records. Everything he did to separate you. The shapeshifter he hired to impersonate you that night. The potions he used to drug the real Kaylin. The bribes he paid to ensure no one searched too hard for Lysara. It's all documented. Lysara's hands trembled as she took the journal. She opened it to a random page and saw her father's familiar handwriting, precise and cold, detailing payments to someone called the Mimic for services rendered. Phase 1 complete, she read aloud. The girl fled as expected. Kay suspects nothing. O, positioned as replacement. Succession will fall to Varenne blood within the year. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. There it was. Proof. Everything Kaylin had claimed, everything she'd been afraid to believe, confirmed in her father's own hand. He planned it all, she whispered. From the beginning. He planned everything. Odessa's voice was hollow. Including using me. I thought... She laughed bitterly. I thought he loved me. Thought I was his favorite. The one he actually cared about. But I was just another piece on his board. When Kaylin kept rejecting me, when the council started questioning Father's influence, he began talking about disposing of me too. And you expect sympathy? Kaylin's tone was ice. No. Odessa met his gaze steadily. I expect nothing. I did terrible things. I let myself be used because I was jealous and desperate for approval. But I'm not here for forgiveness. I'm here because if Father wins, everyone dies. Lysara studied her sister, really studied her, looking past the polished exterior to the broken woman beneath. She saw exhaustion, desperation, and underneath it all, a terror that couldn't be faked. What do you want from us? Lysara asked. Let me help. Let me testify against him, fight beside you, do whatever it takes to stop him. Odessa's voice cracked. I know I don't deserve redemption. But I can't let him murder children, my niece and nephew, because I was too cowardly to act. Lysara's heart lurched at the words. Niece and nephew. Odessa had never acknowledged the twins' existence before. You're asking me to trust the person who helped destroy my life. I'm asking you to let me help save it. Odessa sank to her knees in the dirt. This woman who had never knelt to anyone. Please, Lysara. I'm begging you. Kaelin looked at Lysara, leaving the decision to her. This was her family, her trauma, her choice. Lysara thought of everything Odessa had done, the cruelty, the manipulation, and the years of pain. Then she thought of her children, of the 300 men marching toward them, of the impossible odds they faced. Get up, she said finally. Odessa rose, uncertainty flickering across her face. You'll stay under guard at all times. You'll share everything you know about Father's forces, numbers, positions, weaknesses. And if you betray us... Lysara stepped closer, letting her wolf rise to the surface, letting her eyes flash gold. I will kill you myself. I understand. Then welcome to the war. The next hours were a flurry of strategy sessions and hasty preparations. Odessa's information was invaluable: detailed layouts of Aldrich's mercenary camps, knowledge of their commander's tactics, even the location of their supply lines. He's overconfident, Odessa explained, pointing at a map. He believes numbers alone will guarantee victory, but his forces are mercenaries, loyal to gold, not cause. If we can disrupt their payment, or kill their commander, most will scatter. And where is the commander positioned? Kaelin asked. Always at the rear, protected by his best fighters. Odessa hesitated. Father will be with him. He wants to watch his triumph personally. Something cold settled in Lysara's chest. She would have to face her father. I'll handle the commander, Kaelin said grimly. And Aldrich. No. Lysara's voice surprised even herself. He's mine. Everyone stared at her. Lysara, Kaelin began. He destroyed my life. He drove me from my home, separated me from my mate, made me raise my children in hiding because he couldn't stand that I existed. Her hands clenched at her sides. I won't let someone else end this. It has to be me. You could die. Then I die fighting, but I won't spend another day being his victim. Kaelin studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Together then. You face him. I watch your back. And when it's done... His voice roughened. When it's done, we go home. Home. The word echoed in Lysara's chest, warm and terrifying and full of promise. When it's done, she agreed. That night, the last night before Aldrich's forces arrived, Lysara sat with her children by the fire. I need to tell you something, she said. Stellan's silver eyes sharpened. Cassia leaned against her mother's side, sensing the gravity in her tone. Tomorrow, there might be fighting. Bad people are coming, and we have to stop them. Lysara smoothed Cassia's hair. I need you both to stay hidden with the other villagers. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, you stay hidden until someone you trust comes for you. I want to fight, Stellan said fiercely. I can help. No. Lysara gripped his shoulders. Your job is to protect your sister. That's the most important thing you can do. Can you do that for me? The boy's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Promise me. Her voice cracked. Promise me you'll stay safe. I promise. Cassia was crying silently, tears tracking down her cheeks. Will you come back? The question shattered something in Lysara's chest. She pulled both children into her arms, holding them so tightly it hurt. I will always come back to you, she whispered. Always. No matter what. Later, after the children were asleep, Kaelin found her outside again, staring at the darkness beyond the village lights. Whatever happens tomorrow, I need you to know something. Lysara turned to face him. These past days have been the best of my life, Kaelin said. Better than anything I experienced as king. Just being with you, being with them. His voice roughened. If I die tomorrow, I die grateful. Tears burned her eyes. Don't talk like that. I have to, because I need you to know. He cupped her face in both hands, achingly gentle. I love you, Lysara. I've loved you since the moment I saw you, and I've never stopped. The confession broke something open inside her. All the walls, all the defenses, all the careful distance she'd maintained, it crumbled to dust. I love you too, she whispered. His breath caught. You do? I tried not to. I tried so hard. But you kept being kind and patient and good with our children, and I couldn't. Her voice broke. I couldn't stop myself. Kaelin kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful. It was desperate and hungry and full of 5 years of longing finally given release. She melted into him, gripping his shirt, pulling him closer, and he responded with equal fervor, his hands tangled in her hair, his body pressing against hers. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, his forehead rested against hers. Survive tomorrow, he said hoarsely. Please, I just got you back. I can't lose you again. Then fight beside me, and don't let go. Never. He kissed her again, softer this time. Never again. They stayed like that until dawn began to lighten the sky. And, when the horn sounded, announcing Aldrich's arrival, they faced the coming storm side by side. But neither of them saw Odessa slip away in the pre-dawn darkness. Neither of them knew that their trust had been misplaced, and neither of them realized that the coming battle would reveal truths far more devastating than anything they'd imagined. The first wave hit at sunrise. Aldrich's mercenaries poured over the hills like a dark tide, their battle cries shattering the morning silence. Kaelin's forces met them at the village perimeter, 50 trained soldiers against what seemed like an endless flood of enemies. Lysara fought with a ferocity she hadn't known she possessed. The healing arts had taught her anatomy. Now she used that knowledge to devastating effect, striking at joints and pressure points, crippling opponents with surgical precision. But for every mercenary they cut down, 2 more took their place. There's too many, one of Kaelin's commanders shouted. We need to fall back. Hold the line, Kaelin roared. He was a whirlwind of destruction, his wolf half emerged, claws and fangs rending through anyone foolish enough to approach. Protect the village center. Lysara's arms burned with exhaustion. Blood, some hers, mostly not, splattered her clothes, and still they came. Then she heard it. A scream from behind them. From the village center where the children were hidden, her blood froze. Cassia! Stellan! She ran, abandoning the battle line, sprinting toward the source of the sound. Kaelin's voice shouted her name, but she couldn't stop, couldn't think of anything except her children. The cellar where they'd hidden the villagers stood open, the heavy door torn from its hinges. Inside, chaos, people screaming, struggling against armed men in crimson livery. And there, at the center of it all, stood her father. Aldrich Varen looked exactly as Lysara remembered. Tall, cold, impeccably dressed despite the violence around him. His silver hair was swept back from a face that had never shown her an ounce of warmth. In his hands, he held Stellan by the throat. Ah, daughter. His voice was mild, conversational. So good of you to join us. Let him go. Lysara's voice came out as a growl. Her wolf strained at the edges of her control, desperate to tear out his throat. I don't think so. This one is quite valuable. Royal blood. Alpha potential. Say he'll make an excellent puppet king once the current one is disposed of. Aldrich tightened his grip, and Stellan choked, his small hands clawing uselessly at his grandfather's arm. Where's Cassia? Your sister has her. Aldrich smiled. Odessa was quite helpful, actually. Led us right to the hiding spot. Funny how some people never really change. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Odessa had played them, had used their desperation, their hope, their willingness to believe in redemption, all to deliver them to Aldrich's hands. What do you want? Lysara demanded. What I've always wanted. Power. Control. Legacy. Aldrich shrugged. Kaelin was supposed to marry Odessa, sire children I could control, and eventually die in some tragic accident. Instead, he chose you, Plain, unremarkable you, and ruined everything. So I adapted, made you see what you needed to see, drove you away, and waited. Waited for what? For the perfect moment to reclaim what's mine. He gestured at Stellan. Royal grandchildren with Varen blood, a broken king who'll do anything to save them, and a daughter who walked right into my trap. Behind her, Lysera heard the battle continuing. Kaelin would come for her. She knew he would, but he was fighting for his life, and she was alone. No, not alone. She'd spent 5 years becoming strong, becoming capable, becoming someone who could survive anything. Let my son go, she said, her voice deadly calm, and I'll surrender willingly. Aldrich's eyes narrowed. You'd sacrifice yourself? For my children? Without hesitation. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. Walk forward, slowly. Hands where I can see them. Lysara obeyed, each step measured and deliberate. She felt her wolf coiling inside her, felt the power building, not the healing energy she usually channeled, but something darker. Rawer. 10 feet from him. 8. 6. Stop there. Aldrich's hand tightened on Stellan's throat. One more step and I snap his neck. Lysara stopped. Her eyes met Stellan's, her brave, fierce boy, terrified but still fighting. It's okay, she told him. I'm here, I'll fix this. Touching. Aldrich sneered. Now kneel. Lysara knelt. Every instinct screamed at her to attack, to fight, and to do something. But her son's life hung by a thread. Better. Aldrich looked past her, toward the battle still raging outside. Soon, Kaelin will realize you're missing. He'll come running. And when he arrives, he'll find his mate and children in my custody. Then we'll negotiate. He won't negotiate with you. He will when I start removing fingers. Lysara's vision went red. The wolf inside her howled for blood. And then, a flash of movement from the shadows. Odessa emerged from behind a pillar, a blade in her hand, her face a mask of determination. Before Aldrich could react, she drove the knife into his shoulder. He roared, releasing Stellan. In the chaos, Cassia broke free from the guard holding her and ran toward the shadows, toward her brother. Lysara lunged forward, grabbed her son, and rolled them both clear as Aldrich spun toward his attacker. You treacherous little... I'm finished being your puppet. Odessa's voice cracked with fury and fear. Finished letting you destroy everyone I care about. Aldrich ripped the knife from his shoulder and backhanded Odessa with brutal force. She crashed into the wall and crumpled. But her attack had given Lysara the opening she needed. She rose, placing Stellan behind her, and let her wolf fully emerge. The shift was agonizing and glorious. Bones reshaping, muscles reforming, her human form giving way to something larger, fiercer, deadlier. When she faced her father again, it was as a wolf. A massive silver wolf with golden eyes and teeth that gleamed like daggers. The same winter moonlight fur she'd inherited from her mother's bloodline. Aldrich staggered back. You can't. Wolves can't shift without an alpha's permission. But Lysara wasn't bound by pack rules anymore. She'd lived 5 years as a lone wolf, answering to no one, and becoming something that existed outside traditional hierarchies. She was something new. Something Aldrich had never anticipated, and she was done being afraid. She launched herself at him. Her jaws closed around his arm, the one holding the bloody knife, and she bit down with all her strength. Bone crunched. Aldrich screamed. They fought, human against wolf, cruelty against desperation. Aldrich was older, weaker, but he was vicious and cunning. He kicked at her ribs, clawed at her eyes, and tried every dirty trick in his arsenal. Lysara absorbed the blows and kept attacking. 5 years of rage fueled her, 5 years of fear and loneliness and grief. When she finally pinned him to the ground, her teeth at his throat, Aldrich went still. Do it, he hissed. Kill me. Prove you're the monster I always said you were. For a long, terrible moment, Lysara wanted to. wanted to feel his blood on her tongue, wanted to end the threat permanently, wanted vengeance for everything he'd stolen. But her son was watching. Her daughter was out there somewhere, and she refused to become what Aldrich had always claimed she was. She shifted back to human form, keeping her hand pressed against his throat. "I'm not going to kill you," she said. "I'm going to let you rot in a cell for the rest of your miserable life. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. The murders, the manipulations, the conspiracy against the crown. And when you die alone and unmourned, I want you to know that I won." Aldrich's eyes blazed with hate. "You're weak, just like your mother." "My mother was the strongest person I've ever known." Lysara smiled coldly. "And I'm just like her." Kalen burst through the entrance, covered in blood, wild-eyed with fear. When he saw Lysara standing over Aldrich's prone form, he sagged with relief. The battle? Won. He crossed to her in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. "It's over. It's finally over." Behind them, Stellan ran to where Cassia huddled in the shadows. He wrapped his arms around his sister, and she clung to him, both children trembling but alive, unharmed. "She's breathing," Stellan called out, looking toward where Odessa lay crumpled against the wall. "Mama, she's breathing." Lysara extracted herself from Kalen's embrace and hurried to her sister. Odessa's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and dazed. Did I help?" "You saved Stellan's life," Lysara's voice caught. "You saved all of us." A weak smile crossed Odessa's face. "Good. That's good." Then her eyes closed, and she went limp. "We need a healer," Lysara said urgently. Kalen was already shouting orders. Guards swarmed in, securing Aldrich, carrying Odessa toward the village healer's tent. In the chaos, Lysara felt 2 small hands slip into hers, Stellan on her left, Cassia on her right, both tear-stained and trembling, but alive. "Mama," Cassia's voice was a sob. "I was so scared." Lysara dropped to her knees and gathered both children into her arms. They clung to her, and she clung to them, and for a long moment, nothing else mattered. They were alive. They were together. They were free. 3 months later, the kingdom of Valdrin had transformed. Aldrich Varen had been tried before the full council, his crimes documented and witnessed by dozens. Johan, the shapeshifter he'd hired, the Mimic, had been found and forced to testify, revealing every detail of the deception that night 5 years ago. Lords who had supported Aldrich quietly distanced themselves, suddenly remembering urgent business elsewhere. Even Theron Vask, the counselor who had delivered Aldrich's petition, publicly denounced his former ally and voted for the harshest sentence. Aldrich would spend the rest of his life in a tower cell, stripped of title, lands, and power. A fitting end for a man who'd valued status above all else. Odessa had survived her injuries, though the recovery was long. She testified against their father willingly, holding nothing back, and afterward had asked to leave court entirely. "I can't be here," she told Lysara the day she departed. "Too many memories, too much shame." "Where will you go?" "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can figure out who I am without father's voice in my head." Odessa hesitated. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I am sorry. For everything." Lysara studied her sister for a long moment. The woman before her was broken in ways that would take years to heal. But she'd made a choice. In the end, she'd chosen to save them. "I'm not ready to forgive you," Lysara said honestly. "Maybe I never will be, but I'm grateful you made the right choice when it mattered." It was the closest thing to absolution she could offer. Odessa accepted it with a small nod and rode away without looking back. The twins had adjusted to palace life with surprising ease. Stellan had discovered the royal library and could often be found buried in books about strategy and history. Cassia had charmed every servant in the castle and adopted 3 stray cats that now lived in increasingly luxurious comfort. And Lysara had become queen. The formal coronation had taken place 2 weeks after the battle, a lavish ceremony attended by nobles from across the realm. She'd worn her mother's crown, restored from storage where Aldrich had hidden it, and felt something settle into place inside her. This was where she belonged, not because of birthright or duty, but because she'd earned it, because she'd survived, and fought, and chosen to stay. Now, standing on the balcony of the royal chambers, she watched the sun set over Valdrin and felt at peace. The children are finally asleep. Kaelin's voice came from behind her. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. It only took 4 stories, 2 glasses of water, and a solemn promise to take them riding tomorrow. Lysara smiled. They have you wrapped around their fingers. Completely. He pressed a kiss to her temple. I have no regrets. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sky transform from orange to purple to deep indigo. Stars emerged one by one, scattered across the darkness like diamonds on velvet. I keep waiting to wake up, Lysara admitted, to discover this was all a dream. You're not alone anymore. Kaelin turned her to face him, his hands cupping her face with infinite tenderness. You never will be again. Promise? I swear it on everything I am. His silver eyes, their son's eyes, shone with emotion. You are my mate, my queen, my heart. There is nothing I wouldn't do for you. The words washed over her like warm water, healing wounds she'd carried for so long she'd forgotten they existed. I love you, she whispered. And I love you. He kissed her reverently. More than I knew was possible. When they pulled apart, Lysara took his hand and led him inside. There's something I need to tell you, she said. Kaelin's expression shifted to concern. What is it? She placed his hand on her stomach and watched understanding dawn in his eyes. Another child? His voice was barely a whisper. The healer confirmed it this morning. Lysara smiled, tears pricking her eyes. We're going to have a third. For a moment, Kaelin simply stared at her. Then a laugh burst out of him, joyous, incredulous, and overflowing with happiness. He swept her into his arms and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. When he set her down, he kissed her thoroughly, leaving no doubt about his feelings. I missed everything with Stellan and Cassia, he said hoarsely. The pregnancy, the birth, the first years. But this one I'll be there for. Every moment. Every midnight feeding? Lysara teased. Every single one. She believed him. After everything they'd been through, she finally fully believed in him again. That night, wrapped in each other's arms, they completed the mate bond that had been interrupted 5 years ago. The connection snapped into place with a force that stole Lysara's breath, a golden thread linking her soul to his, unbreakable and eternal. She felt his emotions as clearly as her own, his love, vast and consuming, his gratitude for this second chance, his fierce determination to protect their family. And beneath it all, a joy so profound it brought tears to her eyes. I feel you, she whispered. Everything you're feeling, I feel it. Good. He pulled her closer. Then you know I meant every word. You are my everything, Lysara. She kissed him again, pouring 5 years of loneliness and longing into the gesture. He responded in kind, and they lost themselves in each other until the stars faded and dawn painted the sky in shades of gold. In the morning, Stellan and Cassia burst into their chambers, demanding the promised riding trip. Kaelin scooped them both up with a roar that made them shriek with laughter, and Lysara watched her family, her whole, incomplete family, with a heart so full it ached. This was what she'd wanted, what she'd dreamed of in her darkest moments, huddled in a cold cottage, wondering if she'd made the right choice. She had. Against all odds, through all the pain and betrayal and fear, she'd found her way home, and she would never leave again. She caught him with her sister and vanished. At least, that's what she believed. For 5 years, Lysara hid in a forgotten village, raising twins who carried their father's eyes and never knowing that everything she'd seen that night was a lie. For 5 years, Alpha King Kalen searched for the woman he loved, refusing to believe she'd abandoned him, refusing to give up hope. When he finally found her, she was no longer the naive girl who'd fled. She was a mother, a healer, a survivor. And he was no longer the carefree prince she'd loved. He was a king haunted by loss, driven half-mad by guilt, desperate to reclaim what had been stolen from them both. The truth, when it emerged, was more devastating than either had imagined. A father's conspiracy, a sister's betrayal, a kingdom built on lies. But some bonds can't be broken. Some love can't be destroyed. And some families are worth fighting for. Lysara and Kalen faced their enemies together. They protected their children. They chose each other again and again until the choosing became permanent. A mate bond forged in fire and sealed with forever. She caught him with her sister and disappeared. But the story didn't end there. It was only beginning. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe for more tales of love, betrayal, and second chances. Leave a comment telling me your favorite part. I read every single one, and your words mean more than you know. Until next time.